When I collapsed at work, clutching my chest, the doctors called my parents. They never came. Instead, my brother tagged me in a photo. Family day without the drama. I said nothing. Days later, still weak and hooked to machines, I saw 92 missed calls and one text from Mom. "We need you. Answer immediately." Without thinking twice, My name is Lauren Hayes. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Because what happens when the family who abandons you at your weakest suddenly realizes you are the one holding everything together? I lay in the hospital bed, the steady beep of the heart monitor mocking the silence in my phone. The bruises on my arms were from IVs, not comfort. The flowers beside me? Sent by coworkers, not blood. My brother's photo replayed in my mind, their smiles wide, plates full, caption cruel. Without the drama. The drama was me, my body failing, my breath shallow, my chest tight. But in their world, drama was inconvenience. And love was conditional. So I stayed quiet. I let them laugh while I healed alone. Until the tide shifted. The 92 calls came first, like a storm battering a locked door. Then the text, sharp, commanding, desperate. "We need you. Answer immediately." I stared at it for a long time, machines tethered to me, my pulse measured in numbers. What could they possibly need now? Money? Paperwork? The stability they had mistaken for permanence. I didn't reply. Instead, I leaned back against the pillow and let my silence grow teeth. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come from rage. Sometimes it comes from refusing to rescue the very people who never showed up for you. That night, as rain streaked the hospital window, I whispered to myself, let them feel absence. Let them taste what they served. And while they scrambled, calling, texting, begging, I held my phone still. I knew one thing with absolute clarity. This story wasn't about collapsing anymore. It was about watching them collapse without me. And when I finally answered, it wouldn't be with mercy. It would be with truth. The calls didn't stop. By morning, the screen lit like a siren, their names flashing again and again. Dad. Mom. Unknown numbers. Even my brother, who had mocked me publicly, tried 5 times in a row. I let them ring out. For years, I had been their emergency line, the fixer, the one they leaned on when bills piled up, when legal forms confused them, when the house needed repairs, when emotions spilled over. Lauren will handle it. That was the family mantra. And I had handled it. Every time. Quietly. Lovingly. Desperately hoping it meant I mattered. But the night I collapsed, they didn't come. My body broke under the weight of responsibility, and they called it drama. Now, lying in a hospital bed with tape still bruising my arm, I watched them scramble. At 11:42 a.m., a text appeared from Mom. "Lauren, your father's pension paperwork is frozen. We need you. This is urgent. Not 'are you okay?' Not 'how's your heart?' Not 'we're sorry.' Urgency only mattered when it was theirs." My pulse quickened, not from weakness this time, but from clarity. They hadn't just abandoned me. They'd exposed themselves. Their love was a transaction. Their concern, a contract. I closed my eyes, hearing the steady monitor beep. Each sound reminded me I was alive. Barely, but alive. And that meant I had choices. So I made one. I called my lawyer. A man who didn't ask about family dinners, who didn't need photos or captions, only documents. "Ms. Hayes," he said calmly, "are you sure you want to proceed?" "Yes," I whispered. Within hours, signatures were filed. Accounts shifted. Access revoked. Every thread they had pulled from me was cut clean. When they called again, I knew what they wanted. Money. Papers. The stability I'd built in silence. And when I finally chose to answer, my voice would be steady, not with apology, but with distance. Because there's a difference between collapsing from exhaustion and letting the ones who drained you finally collapse without your hands to hold them. That truth was still waiting. And I was almost ready to deliver it. By the 3rd day, my strength was returning. I could walk the sterile hallway slowly, for pole in tow, nurses nodding encouragement as I passed. My heart was fragile, but my mind was sharp, sharper than it had been in years. The phone on my tray table buzzed constantly. 92 missed calls had become 137. And then one new text from my brother, the same one who had tagged me in that cruel photo. Look, we messed up. But Dad can't access his pension, Mom's insurance is tangled, and you're the only one who knows how to handle this. Please, just fix it. Fix it. That was always my role, the family's invisible backbone. They mocked me when I needed them, but begged when I wasn't available. I scrolled back to the photo he posted, the whole family laughing around a table, drinks raised, my name buried under the caption, without the drama. Now I imagine those same faces, not glowing with laughter, but twisted with panic. Their fixer was gone. At 3:27 p.m., another text from Mom arrived. Lauren, if you don't help us, we'll lose everything. Please just answer. You can be mad later. Mad later. As though my collapse, my hospital stay, my silence were just phases to push past. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the folder my lawyer had couriered. Inside were the stamped confirmations. My removal as co-signer on their accounts. My resignation from the family trust. Transfer of my savings into a private account under my name only. I held each page like a lifeline. This wasn't vengeance. It was reclamation. That night, the news played softly on the TV in my hospital room. A local business segment highlighted my name, not my family's. Lauren Hayes, financial analyst, announces independent foundation to support patients with medical debt. I smiled faintly. They thought I was their fixer. They never realized I was also the builder. And now, the walls I built for them were gone. They could knock. They could beg. They could call 100 times. But all they would find was a locked door and a woman who finally decided to stop opening it. The true silence was coming. And this time, it would echo louder than their laughter ever did. The silence broke at midnight. My phone lit up again, this time with a string of messages that almost read like confessions, but not quite. Mom, Lauren, please. We should have come. We didn't realize. Brother. You know we love you, right? Things just got out of hand. Dad, call me. This is serious. I stare at the screen, the glow reflecting on the hospital walls. The words looked right, but they felt hollow. Not apologies, just panic dressed up as concern. Because the truth was simple. They weren't sorry for leaving me alone in a hospital bed. They were sorry the foundation they stood on was crumbling without me. The next morning, I was discharged. The nurse wheeled me to the exit where sunlight spilled across the pavement. I breathed it in. The air, the freedom, the new pulse of life I'd almost lost. Waiting outside wasn't my family. It was a black sedan sent by my lawyer. The driver handed me an envelope before opening the door. Inside were the final documents. Notification of separation from the Hayes Family Trust. Official revocation of power of attorney my parents once held over me. Proof that every account now bore one signature only, mine. For the first time, I wasn't tethered to them. I leaned back in the car, watching the hospital fade behind me. My phone buzzed again. This time a voicemail from Mom, her voice shaking. Lauren, the bank froze the accounts. We can't even cover next month's mortgage. We need you. Please don't do this. But I hadn't done this to them. They had done it to themselves. Every time they dismissed my worth, every time they chose laughter over love, appearances over presence. I pressed delete. Because some messages don't deserve to live in memory. As the car pulled up to my apartment, I stepped out carefully, weaker in body but stronger in resolve. I unlocked the door with my own key, into a space that finally felt like mine. And for the first time in years, I didn't brace for someone else's weight. My family would keep calling, keep begging, keep trying to stitch their image back together. But they would never understand the truth. The day I collapsed, they abandoned me. And the day they needed me was the day I finally stood. The days that followed felt unreal. My phone buzzed less with medical updates and more with news alerts carrying my own name. Lauren Hayes launches Patient Support Fund. From abandonment to advocacy, one woman's stand. Every interview request, Every email of gratitude from strangers, it was proof that my story was bigger than my family's neglect.
But still, the calls came.
My brother left a string of messages, voice cracking in ways I'd never heard before. Please, Lauren. You know I didn't mean it. That post was a joke. Just a joke. We need you to fix this mess. You can't just walk away. A joke. That was how he justified mocking me while I lay hooked to machines. My mother's messages shifted from panic to guilt. How could you humiliate us like this? Everyone is talking. People at church whisper. Do you want to destroy your own family's reputation? Their reputation. Never my well-being. And my father? Silence. Except one text at dawn. This is beneath you. Call me. But I didn't call. Instead, I sat at my desk in the small apartment I had fought to keep, scrolling through messages from strangers. Cancer patients, heart patients, widows, single parents, each telling me my story made them feel seen. Their words healed me more than blood ever had. At the grocery store, a woman touched my arm gently. You don't know me, but thank you. You gave voice to people like me. And I realized something profound. My family's absence had created a space wide enough for the world to walk into. One night, I opened the group chat again. The last messages stared back like carved stone. We have dinner plans. Don't be dramatic. No worries. I could have left. Deleted. Closed the chapter. Instead, I typed 3 new words. I heard you. Then I muted the chat. Permanently. Because I didn't need their replies anymore. The next morning, the nonprofit sent me the final paperwork, my name listed as founder, sole trustee, sole voice. While my family clawed at locked doors, I was opening new ones for strangers. And I knew, deep in my healing chest, the truest revenge was never silence. It was building something so unshakable, they would have to watch it grow without them. The foundation's first event was small, a hospital auditorium filled with folding chairs and faces that carried the same quiet loneliness I once knew. Patients recovering from surgeries, families of the forgotten, nurses who had stayed when relatives didn't. I stood at the podium, my heart steady now, a faint scar hidden beneath my blouse. I collapsed once, I began, and the people I loved most weren't there. But strangers were. Nurses were. And that taught me something. Sometimes family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shows up. Applause rippled, soft but real. Later, as I shook hands and listened to stories, a volunteer whispered, "Your family must be so proud." I didn't answer. Pride wasn't what they felt.
Panic, maybe.
Shame, certainly. But never pride. Because while the event filled the hall with light, they sat in their house with curtains drawn, reputation collapsing like sandcastles in rain. That evening, another text came from Mom. "We can't pay the lawyer without your help. Please, Lauren, don't do this. You're tearing us apart." I laughed softly, not in cruelty, but in disbelief. They were already apart. My absence hadn't fractured them, it had revealed their fractures. At 9 p.m., the local news covered my event. The segment ended with the anchor saying, "Lauren Hayes reminds us all, love is proven in presence." The camera cut to applause, to faces beaming. And in that moment, somewhere across town, my family was watching the same screen. For once, they couldn't change the channel fast enough to escape me. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need revenge in the way they expected. Because true justice isn't about punishing. It's about living in a light so bright that those who abandoned you are forced to squint. And as I lay in bed that night, the silence of their unanswered calls felt less like absence and more like freedom. Still, one final act remained, a closing scene they would never forget. Not in a hospital, not in a courtroom, but on a stage they valued more than anything else, the annual family reunion. And this time the headline would be mine. The annual family reunion was their crown jewel, the event that polished their image every year. Dozens of relatives gathered under rented tents, catered meals laid across white tablecloths, laughter rehearsed like theater. For years, I had been their silent prop, the one who arranged the chairs, signed the checks, kept the peace. This year, they hadn't invited me. But my name was already on the roster. Lauren Hayes, founder, Patient Support Fund. A cousin on the planning committee had quietly kept me on the program, slipping my name where they couldn't erase it. When I arrived, whispers surged through the crowd. My mother's face drained of color. My brother froze, plastic smile faltering mid-greeting. My father clenched his jaw, fingers tightening around his glass. The host tapped the microphone. And now, a few words from Lauren Hayes. I walked to the front, no fanfare, no theatrics. Just steady footsteps, my heart calm in a way it had never been before. I was supposed to be here last year. I began. But I wasn't, because when I collapsed, the people in this room never showed up. I asked for company in surgery, and the reply was, "Don't be dramatic." Gasps broke, the hum of chatter. Eyes turned to my family's table, where my mother stared at the floor, my brother shifted in his chair, my father's face hardened to stone. But here's what I learned. I continued. Family isn't about photos or perfect dinners. Family is presence. Family is care. And when blood failed me, strangers stepped in. That's why today, I stand not as your fixer, not as your forgotten daughter, but as the founder of something bigger, a fund that ensures no one faces surgery alone again. Applause erupted, raw and uncoached. Relatives I barely knew stood, clapping with tears in their eyes. Cameras from the local press snapped photos. Behind me, the banner of the reunion swayed in the summer wind. For once, my name didn't sit in the shadows of theirs. It stood on its own. I didn't look back at my family's table. I didn't need to, because the sound of applause rising around me was louder than their silence had ever been. And I knew the finale was ready. It would not be rage. It would not be punishment. It would be closure. And they would have no choice but to watch it unfold. The reunion ended the way none of them expected. When the applause faded, I didn't leave in anger. I stayed. I walked among cousins and distant relatives who embraced me, some whispering, "We had no idea. We're proud of you." Others slipped small donations into the fund jar, smiles trembling with sincerity. My family sat at their table, untouched plates before them. For once, no one rushed to join them. No cameras turned their way. The pedestal was gone. Later, as the sun dipped low and lanterns lit the field, the host closed the evening with one final announcement. This year's reunion is dedicated to Lauren Hayes, whose story reminded us all what true family means. Applause again. My name echoed against the tent walls. I glanced once, just once, at my parents and brother. Their faces were a portrait of silence, lips pressed thin, eyes hollow with the realization that the audience they once owned now belonged elsewhere. But I didn't gloat. I didn't point. I simply smiled, thanked the crowd, and walked away, lantern light catching the scar on my chest, proof of survival, not shame. That night, back home, I muted the family group chat for the final time. No goodbye, no dramatic exit.
Just stillness.
Because my revenge was never about shouting. It was about living in a way that proved their absence could never define me. They left me alone in a hospital bed. The world stood up in their place. And now, everywhere I walked, their neglect had become my platform, their silence my amplifier. I didn't collapse anymore. I stood taller than I ever had. And while they wrestled with whispers, empty invitations, and the weight of their own choices, I had only one word left to write across this chapter. The ink hadn't even dried on the paperwork when I found out. They gave the entire family business, everything I had built, bled, and burned out for, to my younger brother, quietly, behind my back, and then had the nerve to tell me during lunch like it was an update about the weather. My name is Claire, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever poured yourself into something until you had nothing left, only to realize the people you were sacrificing for were just watching, waiting to pass the reward to someone else? That day, I was sitting in my dad's office, finishing invoices for a massive supplier contract I negotiated, one that would secure our cash flow for 6 months. My eyes were burning from lack of sleep. 75 hours that week alone. No pay. No title. Just loyalty. Dad walked in with Mom and Jacob, my brother, all smiles. Big news, he said, clapping Jacob on the back. We finalized the papers. Jacob's officially CEO in training. He'll take over next quarter. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? Mom chuckled like I'd missed a joke. Don't look so shocked, honey. You've always been the backbone. But Jacob's got the big picture mind. Jacob didn't even look up from his phone. I felt my heartbeat thud behind my eyes. I wasn't even angry yet. I was stunned. You said we decide together. I said slowly. You said. Dad waved me off. Claire, don't get emotional. Your family. You'll always have a place here. Always have a place here. Like a pet. Or a painting on the wall. I looked around the office. The framed awards I'd won for a marketing turnaround. The whiteboard still stained with my brainstorming sketches. The coffee machine I bought with my own money because the old one broke and no one bothered to replace it. You want Jacob to run this? I asked, my voice low. Then let him. I walked out without another word. That night, I didn't show up to close the quarterly deal with our biggest client. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a panicked call from Dad. Claire, the Anderson Group is threatening to walk. No one has the numbers. Jacob doesn't even know the contact person. Where are you? I stared at my phone for a long, cold second. Then I answered with 4 words. Let him handle it. And added one more for good measure. He's the heir, right? Their faces must have gone pale. Because for the first time, I wasn't just the backbone. I was the silence that let it all collapse. You don't realize how heavy something is until you stop carrying it. And that week, the one after I walked out, I felt the weight fall off in layers. Number 3 a.m. quote requests. No early morning favor emails. No unpaid client meetings where I was expected to smile while Jacob showed up late, unprepared, and somehow still got praised for trying. I stayed home. I slept. I turned off my work phone, ignored the Slack notifications, and let the chaos rise, without me there to smother it with solutions. It took less than 48 hours for the cracks to show. Jacob, the heir, forgot to renew 2 vendor contracts. One expired during a supply run. Another triggered a late fee. The finance team, confused without my usual reminders, missed payroll processing. Staff started asking questions. But the Anderson Group? That was the real avalanche. They weren't just clients. They were my clients. The ones I nurtured, met for coffee, remembered birthdays for. They didn't do business with the Green family. They did business with me. So when Jacob called them and couldn't answer a single question about deliverables, they laughed, then sent a termination notice within the hour. Dad called again, voice cracked open like a man watching his house burn. Claire, please.
We can fix this.
Just come back and help your brother get through the transition. I didn't yell. I didn't even flinch. I simply asked, did he mention the company values when he called them? What? I smiled sadly. That was the first thing I taught every client. That we were about service, consistency, and trust.
Did he mention that?
Silence. I didn't think so. Mom called me 2 hours later, full of guilt-wrapped manipulation. Claire, sweetheart, Jacob's struggling. Your father is under a lot of pressure. We didn't think you'd want the title. You always said you weren't power-hungry. Power-hungry.
No.
I was respect-hungry, fairness-hungry, and I was starving. All those years I showed up because I thought love meant loyalty, even at your own expense.
But now?
I was learning that sometimes love is knowing when to walk away, and letting the people who replaced you feel what you carried in silence. The thing about family businesses? They carry history, but not always the truth. And in ours, the truth had my fingerprints all over it. It was me who stayed when the warehouse flooded in 2017. Me who cut my college trip short to help Dad fire that dishonest accountant. Me who redesigned our entire operations manual when OSHA nearly shut us down. But when it came time to pass the torch, they pretended I was just holding the flashlight. I scrolled through the company website one evening and felt my stomach knot. My name gone. No operations manager. No head of client relations. Not even an about Claire. Just Jacob's grinning face on the homepage, next to a caption that said, proudly carrying the family legacy forward. Legacy? That word stung. I still remembered sitting cross-legged on the warehouse floor at age 12, counting screws with Mom while Dad gave Jacob a Nerf gun and let him roam around like a prince. Back then, I thought I was lucky that I was trusted. Now I knew better. I was just useful. Until I wasn't. Rachel, one of the old marketing interns I mentored, called me out of the blue. Her voice was low, urgent. "Claire, I know you're not involved anymore, but I think you should see this." She sent me a screenshot of a group email. It was from Jacob, titled, "Resetting Expectations." In it, he blamed the recent client fallout on previous mismanagement and claimed he was cleaning up years of inefficient systems. Years of my work. He was rewriting history in real time, erasing my name and painting over it with incompetence. But here's the thing about truth. You can bury it in spreadsheets and slogans. But eventually, it rises loud, sharp, and undeniable. That night, I drafted one email. It wasn't to Jacob, not to Mom, not even to Dad. It was to the Anderson Group's regional director, a woman I'd once helped save from a botched partnership clause that could have ruined her job. I told her the truth, not with bitterness, with receipts, attachments, timelines, meeting logs, proof that Jacob wasn't just unprepared. He was playing CEO with crayons while trying to paint over a Sistine Chapel I spent years creating. She replied in 20 minutes. "Claire, thank you. Let's talk." And I knew right then. They may have handed him the crown, but the kingdom?
It still listened to me.
2 weeks after I left, the office phones were ringing, but not with new business. The Anderson Group? Already gone. Pierce Logistics? Reevaluating our relationship. And Caldwell Retail, our second largest account? They called me directly. "Claire," the rep said, voice taut with hesitation, "are you still involved? Because we'd love to move forward, but we can't do that with Jacob. He doesn't listen." I didn't gloat. I just listened.
And took notes.
Because if there's one thing years of invisible labor teaches you, it's how to listen for the cracks before the building falls. By week 3, 4 different clients had reached out personally, all asking the same thing. "Are you consulting independently yet?" The word hit differently. Consulting. As in valued, needed, respected. I hadn't even considered it. But the universe had. I filed my LLC paperwork that night. Green Standard Consulting. Named not for the family, but for the standard they could never meet without me. The next day, I posted a simple update on LinkedIn. After years of experience scaling operations, building loyalty, and forging long-term client trust in the supply chain industry, I'm proud to announce the launch of my own consulting firm. My inbox is open. Let's build better together. It exploded. Messages poured in. Old interns, vendors, clients I hadn't heard from in years. Even 2 of our current employees messaged. "Claire, if you're building something, we want in." Meanwhile, Jacob tried to restructure the company in my absence. That meant laying off our receptionist, the same woman who'd been with us for 14 years. Replacing vendors I handpicked with cheaper, unreliable ones. And worst of all, he tried to rebrand. With a logo that looked like it was made in PowerPoint by a teenager in 2002. It was laughable. Until it wasn't. Until Dad called again. "Claire, sweetheart, we're losing too much. We didn't realize how much of the business was tied to you." Tied to me? It was me. But I didn't say that. I just said, "You broke the machine and handed the pieces to someone who thought buttons were decoration. Now you want me to fix it." He went quiet, then said, "What would it take for you to come back?" And I smiled, because he still didn't get it. I wasn't coming back. I was building forward. And this time, I owned the blueprints. A week after my announcement, I met with Caldwell Retail in a downtown cafe. The same cafe where Dad used to take client meetings before he got too important to meet outside a boardroom. Their VP leaned in and said, "Claire, we've seen your work. We trust your judgment. If you're consulting, we'd rather pay you than continue chasing your brother for answers he can't give." I signed my first independent contract by noon. And the moment my pen hit paper, something inside me clicked into place. Not revenge. Not spite.
Power.
The kind that comes from no longer needing anyone's permission to take up space. By week 2, 3 more clients transitioned. One even asked if I could train their new operations team, using my original systems, not the diluted mess Jacob had put in place. Meanwhile, back at Green and Company, things were deteriorating fast. Word had gotten around. Jacob's own assistant, a smart woman named Nina, who I once mentored, emailed me confidentially. Claire, he's falling apart.
Can't keep up.
Blames everyone. Morale is tanking. Your dad's furious, but pretending it's fine. Thought you should know. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because while they scrambled to hold up the crumbling structure, I was already 5 floors above them, quietly constructing my own. The irony? They thought I left out of emotion. But this was calculation. The same precision I used to save their company from collapse 5 times before, I was now using to build something that didn't include them. Then came the final blow. Anderson Group reached out again. Their regional director, the same woman I once helped rewrite a contract clause late into the night over coffee, wanted to renew under my new banner.
Claire, she said.
We don't want Green and Company anymore. We want Green Standard. Name your rate. I named it. She agreed without hesitation. And in that moment I realized they hadn't just lost a daughter. They'd lost their engine. They built a business on my back, and when they thought they could replace me with a name and a smile, the whole thing cracked. That night, Dad sent a long email. No subject line. No greeting. Just 6 words.
Please, can we talk?
Come home. And I knew that wasn't a father writing. It was a man watching the doors he'd shut swing open behind him. Because the people they dismissed as just support are often the ones who carry the kingdom. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Pierce Logistics, a client we'd once lost during the pandemic because Jacob mishandled their entire order cycle. Subject: Proposal for exclusive partnership. They wanted me to lead a full restructure of their national operations, not as a consultant this time, but as a strategic partner. A minority stake. 6-figure retainer. My name on the letterhead. I stared at the numbers for a long time. Not because I doubted I deserved it, but because a part of me still remembered when my dad said, "Claire, you're smart, but you're not built for leadership. You're too close to things. Too soft." Turns out, soft doesn't mean weak. It means exact. It means listening harder. It means carrying things longer than you should. And then, when you're finally ready, it means rising with precision. That afternoon, I signed the contract. And within hours, it hit the trades. Former Green and Company. Executive launches game-changing partnership with Pierce Logistics. Within minutes, my phone lit up. Jacob.
Wow. Congrats.
I guess you really went all in.
Mom.
Is this really necessary? We're already hurting, Claire.
Dad didn't text.
He sent me an email. You made your point.
We're sorry.
Please come back. You can run the company. Jacob agrees. Full control. We're desperate, Claire. Desperate. That word sat in my inbox like a shadow of every unpaid hour, every silent dinner, every nod they gave my brother while I stood in the background holding everything together. I didn't respond. Instead, I wrote a newsletter to my growing client base. When they hand your legacy to someone who hasn't earned it, you have 2 options: beg to be seen or walk away and build something brighter. I chose the second. And I'll never look back. It went viral. Comments flooded in. Strangers shared their stories. Women from all over the country told me how they'd given up careers, companies, ideas, all for families who expected loyalty without acknowledgement. But the comment that froze me? It was from one of our old vendors. An older man named Carl who used to deliver wood pallets in the dead of winter. Claire, you were the only one who ever helped me carry the load. They should have built the company around you, not over you. That night, I opened a bottle of champagne. Alone. Not sad. Not angry. Victorious. And as I watched the bubbles rise, I thought, they built their empire on my back. But now I was building my own. And mine? It had my name on every wall. A month later, Green and Company quietly announced their closure. No press release. No farewell. Just a notice on their website. Due to unforeseen financial challenges, we are ceasing operations effective immediately. Unforeseen? They were warned. They were told. They were just too proud to listen to the one voice that built the foundation beneath their feet. Jacob moved to Florida to explore tech startups. Dad started consulting part-time for a smaller firm. Mom retreated into book clubs and quiet social media posts about forgiveness and growth. They never mentioned me publicly. But silence has a sound. And theirs was deafening. I didn't celebrate their downfall. I didn't have to. Because my success wasn't a response to their failure. It was a rebirth from the ashes of their betrayal. Pierce Logistics tripled their revenue under my direction. Anderson Group referred me to 3 new accounts, 2 international. I hired Nina. I hired Carl's son. I built a team of people who once stood in my shadow and deserved light. At our company's 1-year anniversary gala, I stood on stage in a sleek black suit, holding a glass of wine, facing a crowd that wasn't obligated by blood, but bonded by belief. I didn't build this out of revenge, I told them. I built it out of recognition. Of who I was, of what I gave, and of what I would no longer give away without value. They applauded. Not because they had to, because they understood. After the gala, I sat alone in my office for a while, watching the city through the glass. The same skyline I once saw from my dad's old truck window, driving home late from the warehouse, wondering if I'd ever be more than the reliable one. Now, I was the visionary, the architect, the name on the door. And as I turned off the lights for the night, my phone buzzed with a single message from Dad. I saw your speech. You earned everything. We were wrong. I didn't reply. Because sometimes closure isn't a conversation. It's the sound of your own footsteps in a space you built alone, and no longer needing to look back. They chose my brother for the throne. But I built the kingdom.